Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you so much for so nicely and sweetly saying this prayer. So we'll go to the Leelamrita. So I think is this where we stopped last time?
We finished reading this, Prabhu. So while on business and Madurai, so you can scroll down to the next portion.
Yeah, next section. Yeah, but Abhay wrote the articles in
Bengal. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. So we'll start from here. During 1949, Abhay wrote articles in Bengali and submitted them to his godbrother B.P. Keshav Maharaj, who published them in his Gaudiya Patrika. Abhay's format for addressing world problems was the same as his spiritual masters. Even at their first meeting in 1922, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had countered Abhay's nationalistic arguments by stressing that the real crisis in Krishna consciousness, was neither social nor political or anything material, but was simply the dearth of transcendental knowledge. Abhay simply elaborated upon this theme. He never advocated that the ordinary concerns of the world should be disregarded, but he stressed that crises can be solved only when the leadership is God conscious. If Krishna consciousness were put first, other concerns would be brought to line. But without Krishna consciousness, so-called solutions were only folly. Abhay began his first Bengali article by quoting an editorial from the Allahabad edition of the Calcutta newspaper, Amrita Bazar Patrika. The editor had solely lamented that India's worst troubles had not yet ended, despite national independence. The National Week has begun. The memories of Jallianwala Bagh and political serfdom no longer trouble us, but our trouble is far from being at an end. In the dispensation of providence, mankind cannot have any rest. If one kind of trouble goes, another quickly follows. India, politically free, is faced with difficulties no less serious than those that troubled us under a foreign rule. Abhay seized on this editorial reflection as proof of the basic defect of all worldly plans for amelioration. He pointed out that although India had been subjugated by foreign rulers since the time of Muhammad Ghori, AD 1050, India prior to that had never been subjugated. In those days, India had been a God-conscious nation. It was when India's leaders had abandoned their spiritual heritage that India had fallen. Thus, Indians should see that they were now being punished by the stringent laws of material nature. The honorable editor of Amrita Bazar Patrika, Abhay noted, has written so sadly, if one trouble goes, another quickly follows. But what was stated in the Bhagavad Gita a long time previously, it was the same theme that he had stated in his 1944 Back to Godhead articles, and the theme of so many of his letters also. Man, due to his neglect of the Supreme Lord, he is being punished by material nature, which is directly controlled by the Supreme Lord. Men may write newspaper articles, pass measures at meetings and conferences, and attempt to overcome nature by scientific research, yet they will remain unable to surmount nature's law. As they try to escape their punishments, the Supreme Lord will cast them deeper and deeper into illusion, and they will fail miserably. Abhay quoted an appropriate Bengali saying, I was trying to make a statue of Shiva, but I ended up making a monkey. In order to rid the world of misery and bring about happiness, we have now created the atomic bomb. Seeing the all-pervading destruction which could take place in the near future by atomic reactions, Western thinkers have become greatly disturbed. Some people try to give consolation, saying that we will use this atomic energy to bring about happiness in this world. That is also another enigma of the illusory potency. The problem, Abhay explained, was that the world was lacking Krishna-conscious devotees. Leaders under the influence of material nature could never solve the problems of the world. Materialistic illusion was especially prevalent in the Western countries, which Indians should not try to imitate. Abhay prophesied, however, that Krishna consciousness would one day reach the West. In the Western countries, there has never been any discussion of the relationship between the atomic individual soul and the supreme complete conscious personality of Godhead. Neither their activities nor their state in ultimate perfection has been investigated. That is why, even though they have made so much material advancement, they are squirming in the burning poison of sensualism. We can be absolute certain that India's real peace formula will one day reach their ears. So whenever you want me to stop it, tell me, Mataji.
You can stop here.
Okay, probably this paragraph
Yeah,
later. After this line is there. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. Abhay's articles began appearing regularly in the Gaudiya Patrika. His godbrothers appreciated his writings. His denunciation of the materialistic mentality was a reminiscent of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. In Abhay's hands, the Bhagavad Gita's concept of the Asura, demon, was no longer merely a depiction of a mythological or legendary enemies. The Asuras had come to life in modern day Hitler, Churchill, or even an Indian Prime Minister. But as Abhay pointed out, his denunciation of the misleaders was not his own. He was only repeating the words of Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. Thank you very much. So we have read the Leelamrita. So nicely, Prabhupada has pointed out the social commentary on the situation at that time. So we'll just go to the prayers. Om apavitro pavitro va sarvavastham gatopi va yasmaret pundarikaksham sa bahya abhyantaram suchihi Shri Vishnu Shri Vishnu Shri Vishnu. Om ajnana timirandhasya jnananjana shalakaya chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padhan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin iti namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi, Paschatya Desha Tarine, Namo Mahavadanyaya, Krishna Prema Pradayate, Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya, Namne Gauratishe Namaha, Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara, Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Mukam Karoti Vachalam, Pangum Langayate Girim, Yat Kripatam Maham Vande, Paramananda Madhavam, Shri Gurum Dina Taranam, Narayanam Namaskritya, Naram Chaiva Narottamam, Devim Saraswatim Vyasam, Tato Jayam Udirayet, Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, Bhagavat Yuttama Shloke, Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki, Krishnaya Vasudevaya, Devaki Nandanaya Cha, Nanda Gopa Kumaraya, Govindaya Namo Namaha, Nama Pankaja Nabhaya, Nama Pankaja Maline, Nama Pankaja Netraya, Namaste Pankajangre, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Again, just to remind myself, whatever little bit we are able to utter, it's only thanks to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who spent his entire life in Krishna consciousness, and especially towards the latter part of his life, he translated all these great literatures, without which we will have no access to any of this knowledge. So before going ahead, so let's just briefly see the history thus far. So other devotees have already covered in detail. So we'll just see a summary. So we see from this chapter onwards how Lord Vishnu personally arrives with Indra and requests Prithu to forgive Indra. And he gives him advice. He tells him, be wary of the bodily concept of life, which gives rise to enviousness and hatred against others. And he explains to him the characteristics of the soul and the super soul and the relationship between them. And then he stresses on him doing his occupational duty as an emperor along with devotional service. And he advises him to see things equally and not get disturbed by the disturbances caused by others, and not being affected while being in contact with matter. It's a great skill, as mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita as well. While being in contact with matter, not being affected by it. And he tells them the leader's responsibility toward their subjects. Even though he's a great devotee, still he's a king, so he has to perform the duty as a leader towards the subjects. And at the same time, whatever action he's doing, to act under the guidance of the bona fide authorities. And Lord Vishnu continues, and then he gives benedictions. He offers benedictions to Prithu Maharaj because he's so happy with him. But Prithu Maharaj, he doesn't want any benedictions. He embraces Indra. He forgets everything, forgets and forgives him for all his activities. And the Lord is so much in affection with Prithu Maharaj that he stays back for a little more time. Just like how Pandavas in Hastinapur, the Lord always used to stay back. Like that, he stays back with Prithu Maharaj. And Prithu Maharaj refuses to take any material benediction. And he only says, give me thousands and thousands of years so that I want to hear from the exalted devotees. And the Lord, he sees all his servants equally. We can see that how Prithu Maharaj, he compares them to Lakshmi Devi. Even though Lakshmi Devi is so exalted, he knows that the Lord doesn't distinguish. Even the smallest of service, he accepts equally. He doesn't see who is the person giving the service. And the Lord awards pure devotional service to Prithu Maharaj and then finally leaves. And Prithu Maharaj then humbly thanks all the personalities that attended, even the birds, even all the living entities, he thanks them who attended the sacrifice. So we will continue from here. And this shloka 420:38, the last shloka of this verse. Is the screen visible? Okay.
Yeah, we can see that.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. 420:38. Adrishtaya namaskritya dripa sandarshitatmane avyaktaya cha devanam devaya swapuram yayau. Can one of the devotees kindly chant?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Adrishtaya namaskritta nipa sandishtatmane avyaktaya cha devanam Devaya Shapuram Yayo.
Thank you, Prabhu. Any other devotee?
Hare Krishna Prabhu,
Hare
Dandavat
Krishna.
Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam, Mataji.
Adrishtaya namaskritya nripo sandirsitatmane avyaktāya cha devanang devāya shapurang jayo.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Any other devotee wants to chant the shloka? Okay, we'll go to the word to word then. Can one of the devotees kindly chant, read the word to word meanings?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Adhyaya, up unto one who is beyond the purview of material vision. Namakrita, offering obeisances. Nipa, the king. Chandrashita, revealed. Atmane, unto the supreme soul. Abhyaktaya, who is beyond the manifestation of the material world. Cha, also. Devanam, of the demigods. Devaya, unto the supreme lord. Shapuram, to his own house. Yayo, returned.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much. The translation can. Yeah, thank you, Mataji.
Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
King Prithu then offered his respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the Supreme Lord of all demigods. Although not an object of material vision, the Lord revealed himself to the sight of Maharaja Prithu. After offering obeisances to the Lord, the king returned to his home. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Mataji. The purport, it's quite a short purport. Can one of the devotees kindly read this?
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The Supreme Lord is not visible to material eyes, but when the material senses are inclined to the transcendental loving service of the Lord and are thus purified, the Lord reveals himself to the vision of the devotee. Avyakta means unmanifested. Although the material world is the creation of Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is unmanifested to material eyes. Maharaj Prithu, however, developed spiritual eyes by his pure devotional service. Here, therefore, the Lord is described as Sandarshitatma, for he reveals himself to the vision of devotee, although he is not visible to ordinary eyes. Thus, in the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 4th canto, 20th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam entitled Lord Vishnu's appearance in the sacrificial arena of Maharaj Prithu. Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Just read the translation again. King Prithu then offered his respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the Supreme Lord of all demigods. Although not an object of material vision, the Lord revealed himself to the sight of Maharaja Prithu. After offering obeisances to the Lord, the king returned to his home. Guru Gauram Girisheshtam Yo Vishram Bhena Sevate Madhavam Tulasi Rama Krishna Kirtim Kiram Suve Namom Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutle Srimate Bhakti Vishnamba Madhava Swami Tinamini. Thank you very much for kind devotees for joining today and for kindly giving me this opportunity. Such a wonderful conclusion to the chapter, Srila, and wonderful concluding purport by Srila Prabhupada. And it's so very, very important points he gets out. Even though the purport is short, he gets out so many important points, that how the Lord reveals himself to the qualified devotees, and how he explains in this how matter can never fathom spirit, and Krishna is the seer and he is not the seen. He is not the seen. And so here in the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, he says, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, Sudur Darsham idam rupam, drishtavan asi yanmama, deva apyasya rupasya nityam darshana kangshinaha. So if you remember, here the Lord is not talking about his universal form. He's talking about his beautiful personal form. And he said, this form of mine which you are seeing is very difficult to behold, the Lord himself says. Even the demigods are seeking the opportunity to see this form which is so dear. Why is that? Because the Lord is pure spirit. Pure spirit. So how we can see, how we can hope to see pure spirit, because we are made of dull matter. No? We are covered in dull matter. And in our foolishness, I think that, oh, because I have not seen something, I think it has no form. So even the Bhagavad Gita in 7:24, 25, the Lord confirms this. He says, Avyaktam vyaktim apannam manyante mam abuddhayaha param bhavam ajananto mamavyayam anuttamam. So anuttamam is the finest, very, very subtle matter. He is made of not matter actually, spirit, pure spirit. And because I am unintelligent, what do I think? Who I don't know him perfectly, who do not know me perfectly, think that I, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, was impersonal before. And now I have assumed this personality. Due to their small knowledge, they do not know my higher nature, which is imperishable and supreme. The Lord is saying this. So because of my unintelligence, I think that just because I'm not able to see Krishna, he doesn't exist. So I believe my eyes. And similarly, even in the next verse, what does he say? Naham prakasha sarvasya yogamaya samavritah moodho yam nabi jananti loko mam ajam avyayam. I am never manifest to the foolish and unintelligent. For them, I am covered by my internal potency. Therefore, they do not know that I am unborn and infallible. This is not the Lord's fault. It is our fault. It is my fault that because of I am covered, I have chosen to become covered with matter. I am not able to see pure spirit. And similarly, even the 9th chapter, he says the same thing. 9th chapter also. What does he say? Avajananti mam moodha manusham tanum ashritam param bhavam ajananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. So, just because I don't know, I am staying in the prison, and suddenly the president, he decides to come to the prison. So what does it say? Fools deride me when I descend in the human form, the Lord is saying. They do not know my transcendental nature as the supreme Lord of all that be. Just because I see the president coming to the prison, I think he is also a prisoner, just like me. And matter can never fathom the spirit. It is just like me, just like when we are able to see the stone, but the stone is not able to see us, because stone is matter and I am, we are a infinitesimal spirit. So similarly, we are covered with so much of matter, so no way we can see the Lord. So even the 4th chapter, Brahma is saying this. Brahma uvacha, naitat swarupam bhavato swapadartha vedat grahai purusho yavad ikshet jnanasya chartasya gunasya chashrayo maya maya yatirikto matastvam, he says. What does he say? He says, Lord Brahma, your personality and eternal form cannot be understood by any person who is trying to know you through the different process of acquiring knowledge, material knowledge. Your position is always transcendental to material creation, whereas the empiric attempt, the so-called scientific attempt, to attend you is material, as are its objectives and instruments. So with our blunt instruments, I am not even able to see a lowly virus or a bacteria. How I can see the Supreme Spirit? It's impossible. And same thing, even in the 6th chapter, the Lord emphasizes the same thing. What does he say? Prajapati is saying when he is worshipping the Lord. Sri Prajapati Ruvacha Nama Paraya Vithananu Bhutaye Gunatraya Bhasa Nimitta Bandhave Adrishta Dhamne. He cannot be seen. Gunatattva Buddhibir Nivritta Manaya Dade Swayambhuve. So Prajapati Daksha said, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is transcendental to the illusory energy and the physical categories it produces. He possesses the potency for unfailing knowledge and supreme willpower, and he is the controller of all the living entities and the illusory energy. The conditioned soul who have accepted this material manifestation as everything cannot see him, for he is above the evidence of experimental knowledge. Self-evident and self-sufficient, he is not caused by any superior cause. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Because he has nothing to do with matter, so no way matter can never conceive of the Lord. You can never conceive using our material vision. And same thing even in the Brahma Samhita also, it is said how even the greatest of Munis, Muni Pungavanam, they cannot, even if they are going at the speed of light, they cannot approach anywhere near the Lord. And he is existing within everything. It is not that he is hiding himself. He is making a lot of effort to hide himself. He is in open sight. He is existing within everything. But because we are covered with matter, we are not able to see. Very, very famous prayers of Maharani Kunti, where she says, Namasye Kunti Uvacha, Namasye Purusham Tvadyam, Ishwaram Prakrite Param, Alakshyam Sarva Bhutanam, Antarbahir Avastitam. Srimati Kunti said, Oh Krishna, I offer my obeisance unto you because you are the original personality and are unaffected by the qualities of the material world. You are existing both within and without everything, yet you are invisible to all, even though existing within everything. Again, as I said, it's not the Lord's fault, it is the fault of our senses. Then she continues, Maya Javanni Kachannam Agya Dokshajam Avyayam Na Lakshase Mudadrisha Nato Natya Daroyata. Being beyond the range of limited sense perception, you are the eternally irreproachable factor covered by the curtain of deluding energy. You are invisible to the foolish observer, exactly as an actor dressed as a player is not recognized. So no wonder, because I have chosen to cover myself with this illusory energy, no wonder I am not able to see the Lord. And then I claim that the Lord doesn't exist. And similarly, even in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, all the living entities, he is there as the super soul in all the living entities while they are going from one planet to another. But we are not able to see him. And even in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, what does he say? He is existing like the thread through the pearls. And we see only the pearls and we think that the pearls are hanging by themselves. We don't see the thread which is actually holding everything together. And he plays like a human being. Even when he comes to this world, we think, oh, he is just another human being like me. In the Bhagavatam, it is said, Kritavan kila karmani saha ramena keshavaha ati martyani bhagavan guda kapata manusaha. Apparently, false human being. Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead, along with Balarama, played like a human being. And so he performed many superhuman acts. Just because God looks like us, we think, oh, God is looking like a human being. No, it's the other way around. God is so kind, Krishna is so kind that he has made the human being in the image of the Lord. So we behave like false lords. I behave like a false God just because I am made in the image of God. Even Jesus Christ said that, that the Lord, the human being is made in the image of the Lord. It's not that Lord is made in the image of the human being. And he is beyond material cause and effect. Even in the Brahma Samhita, the first shloka itself, it said, Sarva Karana Karanam. So how can the effect see the cause? No, we are all effect and he is the cause. So effect cannot perceive the cause. Only the cause can perceive the effect. So even in the 8th canto, even when Gajendra, he worships the Lord, what does he say? Yasmin idam yataschedam yenedam ya idam swayam yosmat parasmatcha paras tam prapadhye swayam bhuvam, he says. The Supreme Godhead is the supreme platform on which everything rests, the ingredient by which everything has been produced, and the person who has created and is the only cause of this cosmic manifestation. Nonetheless, he is different from the cause and the result. I surrender unto him, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is self-sufficient in everything. Because he is the platform on everything is created, so we think we are existing independently. We don't see the platform on which we are resting. And similarly, because he is the supreme cause, obviously we are the result. The result can never hope to see the cause with our minute senses. And so next thing is how we can qualify our blunt instruments, our so-called very sharp senses, how we can qualify this. First of all, we have to realize that seeing is not the only way. Seeing is just one of the different senses what we have. Seeing is not the only way. Again, we see in the Bhagavatam, where it says, Tata adrishta swarupaya shruta purvaya ya vai prabhu stutim abhruta daivibhir dhirbhistva avahitendriyaha. It is said. So, Lord Brahma, how is he worshipping the Lord? Lord, at Shvetadvipa, Lord Brahma offered prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even though he had never seen the Lord. No? Even in the Bhagavatam, we see when we go to the Supreme Lord, the Lord doesn't make himself visible. He is known only by sound. Simply because Lord Brahma had heard about the Supreme Personality of Godhead from Vedic literature. With a fixed mind, he offered the Lord prayers as written or approved by Vedic literature. So he is not depending on his fallible eyesight, so-called, and to see the Lord. Seeing is just one of the senses. Without hearing, we can never see. Many people say, oh, show me the Lord, then I will hear about him. Then I will be willing to hear about him. But it's the other way around. Without hearing, I can never hope to see the Lord. Antar bahis chakila loka palakay adrishta rupo vicharastya urusvanaha sa ishwarastvam ya idam vashenayan namna yatha dharu mayim narastriyam. So again, it is worship. The Lord is worshipped like this. My dear Lord, just as a puppeteer controls his dancing dolls and a husband controls his wife, your Lordship controls all the living entities in the universe, such as the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras. Although you are in everyone's heart as a supreme witness and commander and are outside everyone as well, the so-called leaders of societies, communities, and countries cannot realize you. Only those who hear the vibration of Vedic mantras can appreciate you. So the puppets can never see the puppeteer, even though he is controlling their every move. So until they hear from the right source, I can never see the Lord. So how to qualify our material senses? Again, Srila Rupa Goswami in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, as he has heard from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he has given us the trick how to qualify our material senses. All of us are already familiar with this. Can one of the devotees kindly read this verse?
Ata Sri Krishna namadi na bhaved graham indriyaha sevan mukhehi jiva dau sayam eva spurti adaha.
Thank you, Mataji. Translation as well.
Therefore, material senses cannot appreciate Krishna's holy name, form, qualities, and pastimes. When a conditioned soul is awakened to Krishna consciousness and renders service by using his tongue to chant the Lord's holy name and taste the remnants of the Lord's food, the tongue is purified, and one gradually comes to understand who Krishna really is. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Srila Rupa Goswami, in fact, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given him this information. He says, with our dull material senses, we can never appreciate, but only when we sharpen it by engaging in the devotional service, starting with the tongue, only then we can hope to perceive the Lord. And similarly, even the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, other verse also, it is said. Can one of the devotees read this, please?
Sarvopadi vinirmuktam tat paripena nirmala rishikesha rishikesha shevam bhakti ruchate.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Shevanam bhakti ruchate.
The translation as well, Prabhu.
Bhakti or devotional service means engaging all our senses in the service of the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the master of all the senses. When the spirit soul renders service unto the Supreme, there are two side effects. One is freed from all material designations, and one's senses are purified, simplify being employed in the service of the Lord. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. So here again he gives a secret how we can spiritualize our senses, how matter can be converted to spirit, so to speak, just by engaging the senses in the service of Krishna. So then it will become qualified to perceive the Lord. Only by undivided devotional service. Again in the 11th chapter also the Lord says to Arjuna that only by undivided material service I can be seen. He said, Naham Vedar na tapasa na dane na chejyaya shakya evam vidho drashtum drishtavanasi mamyata. Again, he's showing his beautiful personal form and he's saying the form you're seeing with the transcendental eyes cannot be understood simply by studying the Vedas, nor by undergoing serious penances, nor by charity or worship. It is not by these means that one can see as I am. And what is the method, he says? Bhaktya tva ananyaya shakya aham eva vidho arjuna jnatum drashtum cha tatvena praveshtum cha parantapa, he says. My dear Arjuna, only by undivided devotional service can I be understood as I am standing before you and can thus be seen directly. He is giving us his assurance. Only in this way can you enter into the mysteries of my understanding. And the devotional service, as we have seen, it begins with the tongue and with the ear by hearing the authorities. And again, in the Shvetashvatara Upanishad also, it is said the same thing, as whatever devotional service as directed by the spiritual master. So again, if you go to the here, he says, Yasya deve para bhaktir yatha deve tata gurau tasyaite katita hyartaha prakashante mahatmanaha. When will the Lord self-illuminate and show before us? One who has unflinching devotion for the Supreme Lord, directed by the spiritual master, in whom he has unflinching faith, only then can I hope to see the Supreme Personality of God by revelation. The superior authority reveals, not by my own blunt senses. I cannot understand Krishna by my mental speculation. It's without this guidance, it's impossible to even understand Krishna, Srila Prabhupada says here. No other process can be used. And ultimately, of course, Krishna has to enable us. So that's why even Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati says, how I am going to the temple and seeing the Lord? Actually, no, I am not seeing. Krishna is seeing. Krishna is enabling my eyesight to see him. Otherwise, I have no hope of seeing Krishna. Again, in the Bhagavad Gita also, 11th chapter also, he says the same thing. Very famous verse. He says, Ihaikastam jagat kritsnam paschadhyacha characharam mama dehe gudakesha yachanya drashtum ichasi. So, O Arjuna, whatever you wish to see, behold at once in this body of mine, when he is showing his universal form. This universal form can show you whatever you now desire to see and whatever you may want to see in the future. Everything is here completely in one place. But how can Arjuna see, even though Krishna is saying that? No. Only when Natu mam shakshase drashtum anenaiva swa chakshusa divyam dadami te chakshuhu pashyame yogam aishwaram. He has to give him spiritual eyes. But you cannot see me with your present material eyes. Therefore, I give you divine eyes. Behold my mystic opulence. So he gives him that thing. So again, even to see the universal form is being seen special eyesight. Then you can imagine what kind of eyes, beautiful eyesight Arjuna would have had to see the supreme spiritual form. Because actually it is said even the universal form in one way it is material. Because Arjuna, it is Krishna's manifestation in the material world. But so Arjuna used to see constantly 24 hours the pure spiritual form of Krishna. So you can imagine what kind of spiritual eyesight he must have had. And same thing in the 10th canto also, it is said how unless Krishna enables, we can never see. Athapi te deva padambujadvaya prashada leshanugrihita evahi janati tatvan bhagavan mahimno nachanya ekopi chiran vichinvan. My Lord, if one is favored even by a slight trace of the mercy of your lotus feet, he can understand the greatness of your personality. But those who speculate to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead are unable to know you, even though they continue to study the Vedas for many years. So with my own puny efforts, I can never hope to understand the Lord. So this is how the Acharyas explain how we can qualify our senses. And when we qualify our senses, then Krishna reveals himself. He can choose to make himself visible. Even though we are not qualified, he can choose to make himself visible. For example, when he appeared before Aditi Mata and the Kashyapa Muni, he says, Yat tad vapur bhati vibhu shanayudhar avyakta chid vyaktam adhara yad dharihi babhuva tenaiva sa vamano vatuhu sampashyato divya gatir yatha nataha. The Lord appeared in his original form with ornaments and weapons in his hands. Although this ever-existing form is not visible in the material world, no way Vishnu form can be seen in the material world, he nonetheless appeared in that form. Then, in the presence of his father and mother, he assumed the form of Vamana, a Brahmana dwarf, a brahmachari, just like a theatrical actor, just like what Kunti Maharani also says, like Nato Natya Daroyata. So he assumed the form of Vamana. And he appeared as Vishnu in front of Kashyapa and Aditi. And this form is key to our spiritual progress. This form is very important. If I deny the form, I have no hope. Because even in the Bhagavad Gita, what does the Lord say? Those who are worshipping recognizing his personal form, he considers them to be more superior. And he says, in the same Bhagavad Gita, he says, those, if I am klesho dikataras tesham avyakta asakta chetasam avyakta hi gatir dukkham. Avyakta, if I am imagining that he has no form, avyakta hi gatir dukkham deha vadvir avapyate. For those whose minds are attached to the unmanifested impersonal feature of the Supreme, advancement is very troublesome. So it becomes very troublesome. To make progress in the discipline is always difficult for those who are embodied. Because I am covered with so much of dull matter, and covered with this dull matter, if I'm thinking that, oh, because because I'm covered by dull matter, I'm not seeing the sun, so sun doesn't exist. So that means I'm in a very difficult position. So unless I recognize the position of the sun, I cannot make progress. So we have seen that in the fourth canto also, the 30th chapter. It said, the Lord, how he appears as Archa Vigraha. Etavat tvam hi vibhubir bhavyam dineshu vatsale yad anusmaryate kale swabudhya bhadra randana. Dear Lord, you are the killer of all inauspicious things. You are compassionate upon your poor devotees through the expansion of our Archa Vigraha. So the Lord is so kind, even though I have not qualified myself, even though I have not bothered to improve my senses, he still appears as the material, so-called material form like Archa Vigraha. You should certainly think of us as your eternal servants. So that's why the deity form becomes so important. The Lord, the devotees always prefer Krishna's personal form. They don't prefer the impersonal Brahman. So again, even in the Gopal Tapani Upanishad, we say here, Satchidananda Rupaya Krishna Klishta Karine Namo Vedanta Vedhyaya Gaurave Buddhi Sakshine. So what does he say? I offer my respectful obeisance unto Krishna, who was a transcendental form of bliss eternally and knowledge, similar to Brahma Samhita. I offer my respect to him because understanding him means understanding the Vedas. So if I don't recognize the personal form of Krishna, that means all my study of the Vedas and other scriptures is a waste. And therefore, he is the supreme spiritual master. Krishno vai paramam daivatam. Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. Again, in the Gopal Tapani Upanishad, it is stated that. So the devotees who, if I'm serious about personal advancement, I should focus on the Lord's personal form. And that's the reason the Lord appears in his deity form, because he knows I have, like people like me, we are not qualified. So he says, okay, I will come in the form that which you can see even with your unqualified eyes. So in the Madhya Leela, it is said, Vishnu Kanchite Vishnu Hari Rahe Mayapure Aiche or Nana Murti Brahmanda Bhitare. At Vishnu Kanchi, there is Lord Vishnu. At Mayapur, there is Lord Hari. And throughout the universe, a variety of other forms as deities. So I might think this is an exaggeration. Oh, what is this? Throughout the universe, as if there are going to be temples of the Lord with deities. But actually, we have seen this even 50 years back, 60 years back, when Srila Prabhupada went to the West. There were no temples anywhere in the world of Lord Vishnu. So, but he personally established so many temples across so many hundreds of countries. He established those temples due to Prabhupada's inspiration. So it's not exaggeration. And so that's the reason he appears in his deity form. Even Kapila Deva, he tells his mother that his devotees always prefer to worship him in his deity form, and they are constantly talking to him, he says, in his deity form. He tells his mother, Devahuti. And serving the deity is not deity worship. It's not idol worship. People, I may wrongly imagine, oh, it is just a doll which I am worshipping. It is just a dressed up doll. No, that's not true. In the Bhagavatam, it is said, Tasyam Vishuddha Karana Shivavar Vighaya Badvasanam Jita Marun Mana Sahaskritaksha Sthule Dadara Bhagavat Prati Rupa Yetad Dhyayam Stad Abhya Hito Yasvrajat Samadhav. So Dhruva Maharaj, we have seen Dhruva Maharaj's story earlier. So how his senses had become purified because of engaging in devotional service. He bathed regularly in crystal clear purified water. He fixed his sitting position and by yogic practice controlled his breathing process. He was engaging in dhyana yoga and the air of life. In this way, his senses were completely withdrawn. And then he concentrated his mind on the Archa Vigraha, because as we remember, he had created a very beautiful deity of the Lord to worship. Archa Vigraha form of the Lord, which is the exact replica of the Lord. There is no difference between the deity and the Lord. And thus, meditating upon him, he entered into complete trance. So he was able to see the Supreme Lord face to face. And again, in the Madhya Chaitanya Charitama Madhya Lila also, it is said, Sri Vigraha Yena Mane Seitha Pashandi. Adrishya Asprishya Seha Yama Dandi. They are condemning. They are condemning a person who doesn't accept the deity form of the Lord. One who does not accept that transcendental form of the Lord is certainly an agnostic. Such a person should neither be seen nor be touched. Indeed, he is subject to be punished by Yamaraja. So if I don't accept the deity form of the Lord. And so I may say, oh, I don't have transcendental senses. My senses are blunt. So I am not qualified to worship the Lord. So I am not so pure to approach the deity, to dress up the deity. But at least I can pray to the deity. There is no rule and regulation against that. No, you have to do all this. Only then you can pray to the deity. Every one of us, the Lord has given us a qualification so that we can pray to the deity. So we don't need to think that we are lacking something. So what does he say? Mana Swayambhur Bhagavan Bhavascha Yenye Tapojnana Vishuddha Sattva Adrishta Para Apiyan Mahimna Stuvantyadho Tvatma Samam Grinima. Dear Lord, even though great yogis and mystics who are very much advanced by virtue of austerities and knowledge and who have completely situated themselves in pure existence, as well as even great personalities like Manu, Lord Brahma, and Lord Vishnu, Lord Shiva, cannot fully understand your glories and potencies. Nonetheless, they have offered their prayers according to their own capacities. In the same way, although we are much lower than these personalities, we also offer our prayers according to our capability. So prayers, the Lord has given us a right. Everyone, every living entity has given us a right to offer prayers, whatever be our status. Mami Partha Vyapashritya Epsyu Papa Yonayaha Striyo Vaishyas Tata Shudras Tepi Yanti Paramgatim. So we don't need to wait for any qualification to utter prayers. Because Lord is saying, O son of Pritha, those who take shelter in me, although they be of lower birth, whether they be women, Vaishyas or Shudras, practically in the Kali Yuga, it is said, Kalo Shudra Sambhavaha, we can attain the supreme destination. We don't need to wait to qualify ourselves to offer prayers. Offer prayers. And similarly, in even the Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam second canto also, what is it said? Kirata Hunandra Pulinda Pulkasha Abhira Shumba Yavana Kashadayaha Yenecha Papa Yad Apashraya Shuddhyanti Tasmai Prabha Vishnave Namaha. What is it? Kirata, Huna, Andhra, Pulinda, Pulkasha, Abhira, Shumba, Yavana, members of the Kasa races, and even others addicted to sinful acts can be purified by taking shelter of the devotees of the Lord, and due to his being the supreme power. I beg to offer my respectful obeisances to him. So simply by offering prayers to the Lord, we can attain the highest destination. Even though I am not at all qualified, still I can attain the highest destination simply by offering sincere prayers to the Lord. The Lord has given us this mechanism. So that's how the Lord reveals himself to us in the Kali Yuga, even though, even in spite of all my disqualifications. So that's why I just wanted to conclude that with that. So what we saw is how the Lord is very, very difficult to perceive. He's just like an actor covered by, because we are covered by the dull senses, we cannot see him. And even great personalities with great knowledge and austerity, they're not able to see him. And then we saw how the acharyas have advised in the scriptures how we can purify our senses so that we are qualified to see the Lord. And here we see Krishna. Ultimately, Krishna is so merciful that he chooses to appear himself, even though I am not qualified. And he gives us this power of prayer. Whether I'm qualified or not, still he says you still have the full right to utter prayers. So this is, I just wanted to conclude with that. So the dear devotees, if they want to add, correct, and or query anything, so kindly do so. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandot Pranam.
Dandavad Pranam, Prabhu.
Yeah, you have given all the revelation how to see the Lord.
Thank
So
you.
there's not much to say about it. You have already outlined everything.
Thank you.
The right process is very easy as you tabulated the form. Is by following this, anyone can see the Lord. It doesn't require any qualification, but your only your attention to the Lord is very, very important. If you pray to the Lord, one day Lord will reveal. And that is why Srila Prabhupada installed so many deities all over the world,
Correct.
making temples so that people in general can see the Lord in his own form and
Correct.
pray to the Lord. And that is the only qualification. The most important thing, you have to see the Lord.
Correct.
That is, your intention towards the Lord should be positive, and then everything will reveal. So if you become away from the Lord, how can you see? Then
Correct.
this is
Correct. It's not the Lord's fault. Yes.
So we need to surrender to Him. That's
Correct.
only the process by which He can be revealed. There is no other way. There is no other way. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavad Pranam, Mataji.
Today you discussed like a secret of Bhagavad Gita with
Thank you.
matter, spirit, personal, impersonal form, and who can see and who can realize the Krishna's form, and how to qualify our senses, how Krishna reveals himself. It's everything is clear with and so many the shastric evidence and sloka. Thank you, Prabhu. It's
Thank you.
very nice class. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And also you discussed like, it's a pure devotional service.
Correct. Correct.
How we can do, yes. Everything is there.
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Hare
Dhanwan
Krishna.
Pranam, Prabhuji.
Dandavad
Very nice
Pranam.
class, Prabhuji.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Prabhuji, I just have a question. Is it okay to ask?
Yeah. Please, please, please.
So, Prabhuji, I just have a quick question.
Yeah.
That why is it that Arjuna needed divine eyes to see the universal form, but he didn't need divine eyes to see the Lord's two-handed form?
Yeah. Good question. Good question. So yes. So Arjuna, the universal form, even though it is considered somewhat material, still Arjuna required the special eyes. But for the other one, the Krishna's personal form, he didn't. He required his normal, so-called normal eyes. But actually, the acharyas have commented the other way around. Actually, what they have said is Krishna had pure spiritual vision, and he could see only the personal form of the Lord. The pure spirit he could see. And so the Lord said, with your pure spiritual eyes, you cannot see this material form. So he gave him some eyes which the demigods had. No? He gave him a lower class of eyes. That's what some of the Acharya commented, saying the demigods, demigods, their senses are much more superior to us, but still they are material. They're made of subtle matter. So he gave him that kind of eyesight with the demigod, divine eyes. No? Divine eyes means the demigod eyes he gave him so that he could see the universal form. But otherwise, Arjuna had pure spiritual eyes because he could see Krishna face to face. That is pure spirit he could see. So only when Krishna assumed this universal form, which is somewhat material, that's why he gave him those eyes to see that universal form. Because Krishna didn't want to show the universal form. No? Arjuna wanted to see. He's saying, even though he is seeing the personal form of Krishna, he's saying, no, please show me the universal form also. No? Because that's for other reasons, which Prabhupada has explained. So when he wanted to see that universal form, he gave him the demigod's eyes so that he could see that form. Otherwise, with his original eyes, he could only see the form of Krishna, the pure form. So that's what some of the acharyas have commented.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Very nice answer. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Dhanwan Pranam.
So if there's any other question, I think we could stop there. Yeah. I think should we stop here, Mataji? Yeah.
I think we can.
Yeah. वाञ्छा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च
कृपा
कृपा सिन्धुभ्यश्च पतितानां
पावनेभ्यो
वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः।
अनन्तकोटि
अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। हिज ग्रेस पोषक माधव प्रभु की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। All glories to assembled devotees. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.